So, I mean, at least in the States, certainly it's pretty common practice to celebrate Thanksgiving. Not everyone does, but I know there's kind of mixed feelings about Thanksgiving as a holiday. But I want to talk about Thanksgiving, not as a holiday necessarily, but focusing on that word, thanks. Or another word we could use for it is gratitude. The 13th century Christian mystic Meister Eckhart once wrote, "If the only prayer you say in your whole life is thank you, that would suffice." When Eckhart offered these words, he wasn't suggesting we pretend that life's easy or always pleasant, and so we should be kind of thanking for all these great things. He was pointing towards something deeper, I think, that thank you can become a way of seeing and a way of being, a kind of posture and a recognition of the broader sheer gift of this moment and of this life. The root of that word, gratitude, that I mentioned comes from the Latin gratus, meaning thankful or pleasing. It also means grace. So when we speak of gratitude, we're speaking of something closely related to a grace, or the other word for that would be gift, something freely giving, something received rather than achieved. And this matters because we adopt this general disposition of gratitude. And when we do, we can soften the grip on our immediate judgments. When we stop rushing to label our experience as good or bad, and then deciding whether to be thankful for that or not, depending on whether it's good or bad. If we don't limit it to that, then we broaden our capacity to see the moments of our lives, all of the moments of our lives, even the challenging and painful ones, as a part of a larger kind of unfolding of life as pure gift. This is really where mindfulness comes in. Mindfulness cultivates gratitude by deepening our capacity to notice and to welcome whatever arises in the present moment, whether it be pleasant, unpleasant, or kind of neutral, or just there. But doing all that without judgment. And when we engage with life in this non-judgmental or non-reactive way, we can become more attuned to the gifts that are embedded in ordinary things. Over time, this steady attention, non-judgmental attention, actually begins to rewire our habitual patterns of thinking. Instead of living most of the time in a fight or flight state, constantly scanning for threats or the negative, the nervous system can begin to shift into more of a rest and digest mode, calmer, more regulated state. And from that state, we're able to notice what supports and sustains us, and gratitude becomes even more accessible. The mindfulness research supports this. A large multi-studied investigation published in the Journal of Applied Psychology found that mindfulness and gratitude are strongly interconnected, and that gratitude mediates the relationship between mindfulness and psychological well-being. In other words, as mindfulness deepens, gratitude naturally increases, and together they support a healthier, more compassionate way of life and way of thinking. A separate kind of meta-analysis of gratitude interventions, including gratitude journaling and reflections and writing letters of thank you, found that these practices reliably improve mental health and reduce symptoms of anxiety and depression. The researchers concluded that developing feelings or gratitude and performing acts of gratitude leads to measurable improvements in emotional well-being. Even neuroscience studies echo this. For example, an fMRI study in Scientific Reports found that even a brief gratitude meditation activates networks associated with emotional regulation and reward and social connection. while also lowering heart rate. It indicates that psychological signs of calm and safety and openness can emerge. All this research confirms something contemplative traditions have always known, really, or at least taught. The way we pay attention transforms the way we experience our lives. The poet David Whyte writes, gratitude arises from paying attention, from being awake in the presence of everything that lives within and without us. Gratitude is not a passive thing. It's not a mood we wait for. It's a form of awareness, a way of seeing our moments as if for the first time. And when we truly see what's before us with this kind of open, non-judgmental awareness, then gratitude naturally blossoms. Stay with me here, but one powerful example of a regular practice of gratitude comes from an unexpected place, children's television. The simple, quiet genius of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood brought the values of love, kindness, and gratitude into millions of homes. Fred Rogers, the show's creator and host, was not only a television pioneer, but also an ordained Presbyterian minister with a lifelong interest in human dignity, compassion, and emotional presence. His gentle manner and deliberate slowness weren't performance choices. They emerged from a deep spiritual practice and meditation. And Rogers understood from his own childhood struggles with shyness and illness how profoundly caring adults can shape us. So the love he received from parents, grandparents, neighbors, and mentors became, as he often said, the soil from which his confidence and calling grew. And so throughout his life, whether speaking at commencement ceremonies, award shows, or even in his staff meetings, Rogers regularly invited people to engage in a gratitude practice. For him, this was a way to honor the invisible web of care that supports every human life, and to remind us that our worth comes not from achievement, but from being loved. He believed gratitude and love were not abstract ideals, but lived experiences, practices that could be strengthened through attention. Remembering those who have shaped us helps us feel grounded, connected, and capable of extending that same love out to others. So I think the key takeaways here, what I'm saying, are pretty simple. Mindfulness practice or paying attention non-judgmentally correlates with higher levels of gratitude. And gratitude practices improve mood and resilience and mental health. And mindfulness and gratitude work together to reshape both the mind and the body for greater well-being. So with this spirit in mind, we enter our mindfulness practice, being present, non-judgmentally, and opening ourselves to the gratitude that arises simply from being here, present. So we'll sit for a few minutes, a simple sitting meditation, and then we'll end with a very brief gratitude practice. So as you know, if you've been coming here, that this practice is not just a mental practice, it's a physical practice too. So adjusting your posture to begin with, so that there's a sense of groundedness in the low body, that we don't have one foot out the door, but we have both feet solid on the earth. And so the low body is grounded and stable to the best of our ability. And the upper part of the body is lengthening up with a kind of opening and relative straightening of the spine all the way up through the back of the head. And placing the hands somewhere where they can come to relative stillness. Palms facing down or facing up on the thighs, or one hand on top of the other, resting in the lap. And closing the eyes or just letting the gaze be lowered. And then bringing a kind of gentle attention to the breath. Noticing the physical sensations of breathing. And allow this awareness of the breath to be an anchor point, a home base for present moment awareness. When the mind wanders into thoughts, emotions, memories, storylines, plans, just acknowledge that, notice. The instruction is not to suppress this, but this to just notice it. And then bringing your attention back to the breath, this breath, this in breath, this out breath. And doing so with gentleness, with kindness, with non-judgment, a kind of compassion or friendliness toward yourself. And it's not about keeping things out, stopping your thinking or anything else. It's about noticing when you're caught up in thought, emotions, storylines, physical sensations, and then releasing all that and gently coming back to the moment. And it's that returning moment by moment over and over again that is at the heart of the training. And because we'll do that a lot, we also practice with patience and curiosity. Notice where the attention is right now. Root of that word, attention, means to stretch toward. So, what is the mind stretching toward in the body? Past, future, a storyline or memory? And just looking at that, and when you discover where it is, then just bring that attention back to this moment, allowing an awareness of the breath to be that home base, that present moment anchor for your attention. And for the purpose of this meditation, really doesn't matter where you've got caught up in, what you've got caught up in terms of your attention. Something may be very pressing, very concerning for you right now. And you can recognize that. It's not to pretend that's not there or to ignore it. You recognize it, but not get caught up in it by sitting here the whole time kind of ruminating on this thing that's really pressing or concerning for you or anything else. So we're just practicing acknowledging all that and then releasing it. And in that letting go, we have a freedom to return to this moment. Let's shift a little bit now to maintaining the sense of stillness, relative stillness. And we'll move into a very brief practice of gratitude, taken right from Fred Rogers. And we'll just take a moment to pause to remember someone who has supported us. In Rogers' words, someone who has loved us into being, helped to care and shape us. So I invite you to bring to mind one person, a family member, a friend, teacher, mentor, neighbor, or anyone who cared about you in a meaningful way. And there's no need for this being a perfect person. And nobody's perfect. So just someone whose presence supported you for the most part. Someone who showed you love in some real way. And see about picturing them now in your mind's eye, seeing their face, their posture, their tone of voice. And if no image comes to mind, then just have a felt sense of their presence. And as you hold that person in your awareness, notice what arises. Maybe a sense of warmth, or gratitude, or tenderness. And take 20 seconds just to consider how they, in Roger's words, smiled you into smiling, talked you into talking, or loved you into loving. And allow yourself to, just for a moment, to feel what it was like to be loved by them, what it was like to be seen by them, what it was like to matter to them. And just see if a sense of gratitude arises naturally, and no need to force anything. Now take a moment to imagine that this person knew right now what their love has meant to you. Imagine how they would feel knowing that their kindness lives on in you. Remember that you were loved into being in some way, and that your life continues to carry forward the care and kindness and compassion that you received as a gift. And see if you might hold on to that in a way and carry that into the rest of your day. We just have a couple of minutes, but I want to offer the invitation if anybody wants to make a comment or ask a question, or just raise your hand, or you have the capacity to unmute yourself.
Thank you for that, Mark.
Thanks, Anita. You've heard this meditation from, I always want to call him Carl Rogers because that was my mentor. Well, my primary guy that I studied in psychology, but Fred Rogers. You've heard him
Yeah,
do
it
this?
makes
He
me
did
want to
this
go
at
watch
the
the.
Emmy Awards.
I was just going to say it makes me want to go watch the movies on him again.
Yeah.
And I interrupted you, Mark. What were you saying about the Emmys?
No, he used it when he I think he received three Emmys or something, and every time he received any award, he always acknowledged that people brought, it was not just that he got there on his own. And so he would actually do these meditations with the audience.
Mark, thank you. This was perfect just before the busyness of the holidays starting.
Okay.
And I loved calling to mind someone that was really special, and it was an old friend that I met in my very first year of teaching who became a mentor. And she passed away a few years ago, but I knew her for over 30 years. And such a dear, dear person who I hadn't thought of in a while. And now I will carry her into the holidays. So thank you.
Mm.
That was lovely.
Thanks, Cindy.
Thank you for the polling, Mark. I didn't realize how many people, I've never thought about how many people I've had who love me into a new life in my life.
Yeah, it's worth reflecting on. It's kind of extraordinary when you think about it, you know. Dale, you just heard this because we did this on the retreat this past weekend, which you were on. So sorry for the repeat for you.
No, that's okay. It's especially, because you come home and you have to deal with the house and getting everything put away and reorganized, and it's sort of like it's a good